Welcome back to this week's episode. I'm so excited to share a guest with you again this week. Her name is Andrea Lynn Diaz, and she is really magical. And I want to share this first before I have her introduce herself because we've met together doing a beautiful mastermind that we're in for the next 12 months together. And we have gotten to know each other, sit with each other, have a meal, and really share our perspectives and magical gifts. And they were so aligned, and I was so excited to have her come on to this podcast. Welcome, my beautiful friend. I love your work in the world. You're an oracle, you're an intuitive guide, energy alchemist for people. And I'm so excited for you to share not only what you're doing in the world, but how it came to be. And so I'm going to give you the stage here to just say hello and fill us in on all those details with your beautiful work in the world.
Well, I'm so excited to be here with you. And I feel like we did get to connect a lot deeper when we were in Denver a month and a half ago, or whatever. Has it been a month and a half ago?
It's gone so fast.
A month ago. And just to be here and to share with the world kind of like where I've been, where I'm at, and where I've come from. And I am just very passionate about bringing people deeper into the truth of who they are, unraveling a lot of the programming and things that we were taught that were truth about us that aren't, and getting deeper into our bodies, in touch with our intuition, and functioning more from that knowing and that divinity and that way of being versus the mental constructs that are easy to get trapped into.
Yeah, totally. Like we were talking before we started recording on just so many of the similarities in our stories. And I've done about 25 interviews now since my podcast began. And there's such a beautiful moment of synchronicity for each person, even though their journey has been different. And I think those synchronicities, when we can recognize, like, I really believe there are no accidents. I believe we're always divinely guided to meet the people we're intended to meet, even for a moment, a reason or a lifetime. And I was looking back and thinking while you were speaking, like, oh my gosh, we had this recorded and rescheduled and available for recording well before we even met each other. Just in June, the end of June. And so I feel like I've known you for so long since then. And just the synchronicity of you seeing the call to be a guest and then coming in, and then we actually met in person and got to spend time together, I think is really wild. And we get to share those stories and understand that we're not alone. And so, can you tell us a little bit about not, well, yes, the work that you're doing currently in the world, helping people really come back to their true selves, but also how you got started? What was your journey to get here?
So my journey began, I always think of it as like the moment I entered this world. There was a part of me that questioned my parents,
Mm.
like questioned my arrival. Did I pick the right family? Like, why are these people doing life this way? Like, I can think back and remember thinking that. And I don't want to go into too much length, but at 3 years old, my father became a Jehovah's Witness.
Mm.
And throughout like the next 7 years, he was very deep in that and starting to, obviously teach us those things and bring us up that way. And then when I was about 10 years old, my mom actually committed to it as well. So from that point forward, it was full on indoctrination of that religion.
Mm.
And there was a lot of diminishment of my magic. Like, I can think back, I remember having visions. I remember being in my room as a kid, having connections with angels, other other spirits and energies. And it wasn't anything of my parents. They didn't know any better, but they couldn't handle, like, they were taught that that was the devil, right? It was an evil thing. So it at some point I buried a lot of that deep within me. And I had daughters of my own, twin girls, in 2007. And it really began to unravel me. And I know that you probably can relate to this, and a lot of women listening. Motherhood is one of the biggest initiations that you will ever go through in life.
Yep.
It will bring you into a part of yourself that you weren't aware of. And so it began to unravel me a lot. And I started to become more aware and conscious of my patterns, my ways of thinking, like the way that I was interacting with myself, the fact that I was letting people walk all over me, the fact that I wasn't really backing what I was saying. And there was a piece in this religion for me where there were things going on that I was no longer available for. And I did not want my children being raised in this.
Yeah.
So when,
Well, I was just going to say it's interesting too because my parents weren't so much religious, but as my mom was sick, and when I was about 12, she was in her height. She had multiple sclerosis. And I think she was seeking something. I don't know all the ins and outs of how she thought, but as I look back, and she's no longer here with us, but as I look back, I'm like, I think she was seeking some peace. I think she was afraid, and I think she was looking for anything that would give her answers. And so we bounced early between Catholic school and Christian school. So trying to find her place being our place, and then also allowing us to kind of make up our minds. But there are a lot of influences with that. And as you're speaking, even I hadn't tapped into this before, but like even as a child, I'm like, yeah, and there's more. But we're taught to not question authority, or we're taught to just do what you're told. And so it really does impact that voice of ours. Um, so I can't imagine what that was like for you. How was it for breaking free from that? How old were you when you started to kind of be like, I'm going to start doing things a little differently?
yeah, I mean, my girls were, I think, 3 years old. So I would have been like 35 at the time.
Okay.
And I just started to really see a lot of, like, I had known for years that that was not a path I wanted to be on, but I was so entrained in the community, right? And like not losing relationships with people because of wanting to do things my way. Like literally like taught that this was the only true religion. Like this was the way. If you didn't follow this way, you were doomed pretty much. So the piece that you mentioned about your mom looking for something, I know that with my father, that's exactly what was going on. Like over the last 6 years, I've really dove deeply, and like spirit has actually shown me what led him to that. So I've been able to see that in a completely different way. But when I got to the point of realizing this wasn't my path, it was this major unravel of not only myself, but also my marriage, because that was all built into that.
Yeah.
And I started going to therapy. That was frowned upon. I started really asking more from him in our connection. And he wasn't in a place where he was willing to do that. So things kind of started to unravel. And when my girls were 7 years old, I had this knowing that something needed to shift. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that it wasn't something that was going to happen through my marriage.
Wow.
So yeah, there's quite a story with how that all unraveled, but that was the piece for me, was like, I am not going to have my children indoctrinated in this way to be led away from what, like, they're truly here, who they're truly here to be.
Yeah. And I feel that in the aspect of parenthood, right? Like having my girls was an opportunity to heal or not have them experience some of the things that I did. And there's so much power in these declarations that we unconsciously or sometimes consciously claim, but don't realize the power of that path once we've claimed them. And I think so much of that is such a secret, and being able to teach them a new way as well. Like they're such a mirror into our own eyes. They're a reflection of us, reflection of our history, our generational patterns and beliefs. And yet they all come in, especially those beautiful children after the 2000s, they're coming in without the endings and beginnings that we had to go through so much from a numerological perspective, right? The ones and the nines from the 1900s. They're in the twos. They're already connected. They're intuitive. They're closer to their design of what they've come in to experience in this world. And yet they're still going to go through the human process, the conditioning, the programming as well. When we can actually tune in to respecting their own personalities and really taking from that the wisdom that they have to share with us, it's also for us to see about us. And I agree with you. It's made me want to be a better mom. I didn't want to pass down decades of worrying what my body looked like, or, just the things that we can surface level keep ourselves stuck in, and keep ourselves from that whole bigger perspective of what actually is here to experience in this world. So I'm very grateful for that. But when it comes to having your back and learning to teach them as you've learned to trust your intuition. These events in our life, they're not here to tear us down. They're actually here to build us up. And when we can start letting go of that past programming and really letting ourselves land into what is now without holding on to, oh my gosh, well, I thought it was supposed to be or needed or should have had to be this way. There's room. There's like that ultimate question beyond I'm done. I need something different. And who am I? So I can be the best mom for my kids so they can discover who they are on a path that's clear. And I don't have to impede it with all the ways I was taught that this is how it should look, right? There's been so many moments where I'm like, from Christmas tree decorating to like how you clean the kitchen, it doesn't freaking matter as long as they're doing their input and doing their best, right? Where does that take you with how you help people come into their intuitive states now? They're learning to back themselves and trust themselves and their intuition. We were speaking a bit about clearing that inner tension of the mind to be more intentional. Where do you find your clients coming in, and where do you help them really excel in this alchemy process?
So most of the time, the people that land in my world, it's like they're there, but they may not know why, is what I find.
Mhm.
So they're kind of on a brink of a new way of functioning with themselves and going more into letting the body lead versus the mind leading,
Mm.
and thinking that they need to be creating their life or choosing certain things based off of beliefs they were taught, um, beliefs that they maybe picked up from other people, and learning more to tap into energetically what do they desire first off. Like feel like that's where a lot of people need to start. Like, what do you even want in your life? Like, what do you even want to create? You
Yeah.
have to know that. You have to have that as a launching pad before you can really like back those desires and make choices for yourself that are going to lead you there, which that all is connected to people pleasing,
Mhm.
um, disconnecting yourself from letting it matter what people think, and choosing whatever that thing is that's going to light you up, knowing, getting to a point where you just know in your body that when you back that desire, you're going to be backed in every way possible.
Yeah.
And that requires major disconnection from the mind and purely functioning from the mind. We still need the mind,
Yeah.
but to have the mind lead. And often the mind is connected to archetypes. Like, this could be an hours long conversation, right?
Mhm.
Like all the archetypes that it's connected to, and how we have to just learn to really get our divinity activated in our body
Mhm.
through our spine, and allow that to be what we tune into.
Well, because it lays dormant, correct? Until we're
Mhm.
at that place where we're really willing to start opening that up. And that's usually that I'm not sure what's happening. I feel disconnected, but I want to be more connected with who I am. I was giggling a little bit when you say, what do you want? That question floored me. I'm like, what do you mean? Like
Yeah.
based off conditioning and just doing everything for everyone else and being a caregiver that I was in my family, and then learning how to be everything for everyone. It's like that question wouldn't probably have sunk in as deep for myself if everything else hadn't fallen away. So we went through a huge event where we lost the business we had for 20 years, blah, 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 blah. It
Mhm.
really literally woke me up to, well, what else could I be? Who else could I be? What else could I do if I could change anything in the world? And I think at a certain point we meet ourselves there, maybe multiple times throughout life. Um, I had
I
such
would
a
agree.
desire to want to do it differently. And if you would have told me you're going to open your intuition and you're going to be helping people with all these gifts and you're going to have, this connection that you never thought possible, I would have been like, what? So
Right?
I think it's very common, but that people pleasing was very prominent in my life too. I just wanted to be the best person I could be for everyone else. I didn't consider, like, there was no permission for me to be it for me, even though there was like a subconscious driver to be the best that I could be. It was just identifying myself and maybe misconstruing it a little bit. Do you find that a lot?
Yeah, I think for me it was this point of realizing like there's this expression within me that wants to come forward,
Mm.
and it's been squashed for so many years because it, number one, if I was too joyful it pissed people off. If I spoke very directly about what I knew and what I was passionate about, then I was disrespectful.
Mhm.
Those are kind of all the things that came into like fruition for me of like, wait, and I find this with women who find me, it's like this awareness of there's something that I'm here to create. It
Yeah,
can be a movement, it can be a business, it can be just shifting my life and the way that I am so that I create a legacy for my family and the next generation doesn't carry forward what I do. It's similar to
right.
what you mentioned. But yeah, it was that piece of like, wait, I have something to bring to this world. And I've really diminished that because I've been trying to keep other people comfortable.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's such, I like want to give a minute to that as words, but like the depth of what that is. And then that's when it begins to unravel. It's like we've subconsciously or quietly asked ourselves, who am I anymore? I'm feeling lost. I'm feeling like this isn't it, right? And when the student arrives, the teacher appears,
Yeah.
and the universe is like, here's these words and this language and these people. And maybe you start finding books and resources and humans and conversations. And all of it is perfectly aligned. It's like, how better to understand the purpose of why we've actually come in this world than to have the perfect parents to align us on the course that didn't want to be the same. And I think that's very common, not only with the beautiful humans I'm able to interview for this podcast, but I think that's the purpose in life is
Mhm.
to understand that all of it's been, if we're talking about perfect, perfect for where we're awakening next. And that we can teach the next generations that there's a new way, there's a better way, there's a faster way to know who we are, connect, and believe in that authenticity. And I know that authenticity is really important to you as well. And so those places where we can not only know we have our back, but really step into that version of ourselves. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because we hear that. I mean, there's a lot of taglines and language, at least in, I'm going to say my space on social media, not everybody's space on social media. But when
Mhm.
we really come into ourselves authentically, what does that mean for you? What is your finding from where they were to
Yeah.
where they are?
So for me, that means as simple as a conversation with someone or in a group of people, when there's a conversation about a specific topic, and these people are all like speaking about what their opinion is or what their truth is. And if you notice that there's a part of you that just wants to agree because you question where you stand, that's where you're kind of getting like a little bit of like a wait, look at this. Because if you're not able to really speak from what you believe as the truth on that topic, then you haven't really done the work within to know enough about your values and standards and how to back them.
Right. And so you'll waver, maybe you'll compromise in your own self.
Yes.
It's that certainty piece that I have something to say, that I can share my voice,
Yeah, and
right?
it's the piece, and it's also the piece of if I really say what I know and what I value and feel, and these people can't receive it in a way that is respectful to me, like, am I going to waver? Am I going to back down? Am I going to say, well, maybe I have it wrong, maybe you're right, maybe I need to think about it that way? And there
Mm,
will be times that that happens, but most of the time, if you've done the inner work, you'll know like what your values are and you'll be able to come back to that. Like that's a core piece, is knowing your values and what you stand for.
absolutely. I totally agree. Tell me about your connection with angels. Did that expand from where it was when you noticed it when you were younger to now? Like how do you receive guidance? How do you connect in? Who or who do you connect with?
Hmm.
I think I'll leave it there and let you
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have even had experiences as a child with what some would label as aliens, extraterrestrial energies. And like I said, all of that got buried for years. So, the month before my mom passed, I decided to go to a Reiki session. This was the first time I had ever experienced energy work. I was raised in this strong religion. I was nervous. I thought the devil was going to come for me, like literally anxiety attack on my way to that appointment. It went great. I went back like 3 days later for another one because I was working through some heavy things at that time. And on that second session, I literally had an angel come up over top of me, wings. I felt my hand being held. It was my right hand. And it just opened me in ways I can't explain. Even the practitioner was like, I've never had anybody experience this on their second ever Reiki session. So I was already at that point of like, it's time to open all of this back up. And yeah, I definitely work with the archangels. It just depends on which one wants to come through. Sometimes I don't even necessarily know the name, it's just the energy.
Mhm.
But what's really gotten me deeper into my gifts is what I call my practice of laying with God.
Mm.
And it's this space of what some would call meditation, but it has nothing to do with the mind. It's literally feeling like God in your body and doing like the things that you're intuitive led to activate that, because we can be our own activators with our voice, with movement, with even with writing, like channeling things, doing like soul messages to yourself, things like that. So for me, it was really going like internal and getting deeper connected, more intimate with the divinity within myself.
Mm.
I've been through the path of that through various measures, like including plant medicine, and working with other coaches and things, but the main thing that's really brought me deeper is just being with myself and spending time with that divinity.
Yeah,
That's
it's
been
really important. And from someone like I wouldn't say that I grew up consciously knowing that I had all these connections when I was younger. It doesn't mean I didn't, right? It feels like it all kind of came online about 6 years ago, and then it was just been this mass learning, including taking Reiki, becoming a Reiki master, universal law, like all the things, right? And really working within energy, not only healing energy, but creation energy. So there's two different spectrums that I've worked from, which is what I love because we don't have to always go back and heal so much. We get to just be in motion towards what we want to create, and that will rise. But the experiences I had, as I look back, I think I had to have each piece for my brain to understand because it was such a fast transition. So I remember feeling that too, like second Reiki 2, I think we did 1 and 2 on the weekend for the training. And like the second day of feeling footsteps around me and someone holding my hand and no one was there, and what does that mean? And how does that connect? And it was like this curiosity and this fear at the same time because it was unknown. But it's been such an opening of it. We just are. We're connected in ways that we're often told we're not. We're connected in ways that we don't realize that we have these beautiful divine connections. And it's okay to open beyond what we've been told our whole life because same, like I fell in love with numbers and my intuition really blossomed through studying numbers. It doesn't mean that's the only way. It just was my way, which is ironic because I used to do accounting for our businesses. And so I already looked for patterns in numbers. But that was more of an ancient wisdom that was really wanting to come through. And so it's really been this acceptance. And then the toggle between what the world will think and then what's really real for me. And it seems like that's a piece of what you were speaking about, right? And really trusting. And my mind will get busy and I won't always know who's here or what's here, but it's a feeling. And it's that divinity. The feeling for me has been really important because that's what I can connect with the most. And so I love your practice because that resonated a lot, made a lot of sense with, when the divine is here, you can feel that flow of love and absolute peace.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
really
and I found that is essential for like landing the safety in the body.
absolute.
You
Well,
have to get
yes,
to
because the
mm,
whole journey has been, does my nervous system feel safe? Is there things that are like, how do I say it? Like I literally had to have a come to Jesus meeting from what I've been taught and growing up, and like my my feelings. I didn't realize I had towards all of that and making peace with it. And oh my gosh, like absolutely. And even to this day, it's like, yes, my brain can be on board now, but my body still wants reassurance and it wants to open and make space for even more of the energy to flow. And all of that is progressive. You know, it's not this one and done, okay, I did that. That's great now. That's why it's so wonderful to have people like you to have support with and understanding and are sharing our stories because it allows us to open even more in our heart.
Yeah, life is a constant expansion. Like if you're drawn to this kind of work and you're with like a seeker, someone labeled that as, then you're going to be expanding forever. You're never going to get tapped out. There's
Yeah, and
always growth.
that better version of you will always be 1% more and more and more and more.
That I feel like it's that more like the embodiment of your true divinity. I don't
Mhm.
necessarily see it as a better part of you. I see it as a more divine. Divine is the only word that's
A
really coming
depth,
forward.
a depth of who you are.
Yeah, like a truth of your divinity
Yeah.
coming through your body and through your life and who you're being. Like my belief is that everyone who finds this road, this avenue is here to activate this part of themselves and create a life where they're as wealthy as possible in all ways. Like
Yeah.
that is my belief because that is like divinity embodied.
I love that. Just so good. Like I agree. Like these conversations, they do go a bit into the depth, but I don't know how to not do that. That's just part
Mhm.
of who I am and what I like to share and talk about because there's so much more to discover in that. And then when we get into this, and we can feel the channeling, I can feel the energy running. And so you guys might be feeling that too as you're listening in. And that's what it's about. It's about opening and activating that heart just a bit more so you can get to feel your own divinity inside your body. Like we're meant to be connected to the divine and also in this body in this lifetime to experience all the senses, which is so good. I'd love to end. It's gone so fast, and I love
Mhm.
ending with a question for each person because everyone has such a unique definition. But when you think of the words um, purpose and presence and prosperity, like what comes to mind for you? How do you define that for yourself?
So for me, purpose gets very misconstrued in the spirituality world. It's like we often are taught that we're here to do like this one big thing, but I see purpose as you being authentically you. Like
Agreed.
your purpose is to tap into that truth of the divinity within you and your capacity to really choose what you create. And in order to do that, you have to be fully present.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like when I hear the word prosperity, that's already a divine birthright. Like that's already done. Like our journey is to follow the path that we're on. We're going to have detours, but we're constantly getting back on that path and we're being led to what that what the way that purpose is going to be created through us to allow us to embody the prosperity that we already have. Like we already have it.
Yeah.
We've just we're just in a labyrinth. I can never say that word right, but I know you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We're just in that of finding the way that we're being led so that we can, yeah, just like fully land in what's already ours.
I
It's
love
already
that.
done.
So beautiful. Where
Mhm.
can people find you? Where do you hang out most? Where can they connect with you?
Most of the time I'm a Facebook person, so you can find me under just Andrea Lynn Diaz on Facebook.
Beautiful.
And then I think you're going to put it in my bio. I have a link tree too with connection there for me as well.
Yep, we'll put
Um,
everything in the show notes. Yeah.
yep. Yeah.
What else? Anything else left? What last thing you want to leave our audience with?
Um, I feel like if you've gotten to the end of this conversation and you feel like there's more, that if you go back and re-listen to this, but you focus more on how you feel versus what your mind is thinking, that you'll pick up even more nuggets from this conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, let yourself feel it in your body as well as hear it through your mind. They're
And
intended.
just feeling like how our voices activate things, like how you get pings in your body, how you feel tingles, things like that. Like there's a lot of depth here.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, it's been such a beautiful conversation. What an enriching conversation today. Thank you so much for your time and your magic and coming and sharing it with the audience. And I look forward to our next conversations, everyone. And with that, we say goodbye for today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.